Have you ever had like a sudden, unexplained physical pain that just entirely derailed your day?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And I'm not talking about, stubbing your toe or knowing exactly why your lower back hurts after moving heavy furniture.
Yeah, that's an earned pain.
Exactly. Earned pain. I mean, one of those terrifying, hyper-specific moments where you were just sitting there, minding your own business.
Right.
Maybe you're reading a book or watching TV, and out of nowhere, just boom,
Out of nowhere.
a sharp, undeniable pain hits you deep in your stomach, or maybe your chest or your head, and for a split second, the entire world just stops spinning.
It really does. It's like time freezes.
It does. All those plans for the weekend, that email you were stressing about, the argument you had with a friend, all of it instantly evaporates. Your entire universe just, well, it shrinks down to the exact circumference of that pain.
It's such a completely universal phenomenon. Yet in
Mhm.
that split second, you feel more isolated than you've ever felt in your entire life.
Oh, totally alone.
Because the human brain is just ruthlessly efficient, you know? It takes all of your complex, higher-order concerns.
Like your career or whatever.
Right, your career trajectory, your relationship dynamics, your deep philosophical musings, and it immediately overrides them with the raw biological imperative of an immediate physical threat.
You're just a biological alarm bell at that point.
Exactly. You're no longer a person with a history and a future. You are just a nervous system sounding an alarm.
But then usually the pain passes, right?
Yeah, most of the time.
We take a deep breath, the alarm bells in our head sort of quiet down, we maybe plop an antacid, and we just go right back to our lives.
We sweep it right under the rug.
We totally sweep it under the rug. But so for this deep dive, I was recently digging through this deeply personal, just incredibly raw essay.
Right, the one about the stomach ache.
Yeah, it's titled Mysterious Stomachache and Stress, The Pain of Living and Dignity Seen the Moment Death Was Considered.
Quite a title.
It is, and the writer takes that exact microscopic, fleeting, everyday event, literally a random 10-minute stomachache,
Yeah.
and they absolutely refuse to sweep it under the rug. Instead, they use it to pry open this massive, profound reflection on life, death, and human endurance.
It's a fascinating pivot.
It really is.
Yeah.
It starts with this physical discomfort and ends with a complete teardown of what it actually means to survive the human experience.
And the central premise that anchors this entire exploration is captured in one specific haunting observation early in the piece.
What's the quote again?
They write, "The will to live deepens as one contemplates death."
Wow.
Yeah. It sets the stage for a journey into how physical pain isn't just a biological warning sign.
Right.
It's actually a forced entry point, a gateway into understanding not just our own mortality, but the deep, often entirely invisible suffering of the people around us.
So our mission today for this deep dive is to really guide you through the text's profound exploration of these two completely opposite types of human suffering.
And how they mirror each other.
Yes, how they mirror each other and how the author completely redefines the concept of dignity as simply surviving the day.
It's a heavy journey, but a really liberating one.
It is. So, to kick this off, let's unpack the exact moment this philosophical spiral began. The mysterious pain itself. Because the way this starts is so utterly mundane.
Very relatable.
Right. The writer is just at home, at night. They haven't eaten anything strange. They aren't, like, recovering from a marathon.
Nothing out of the
I
ordinary.
mean, nothing. And suddenly, this severe, utterly unexplained stomachache arrives. They start running through the mental Rolodex of possibility.
Like we all do.
Right. Like, could it be hives breaking out on the inside of the body?
Which is a terrifying thought, by the way.
Oh, horrific. Or could it be some sudden, violent, physical manifestation of chronic stress?
Yeah.
But the exact medical cause remains a complete mystery. And the physical event itself is incredibly brief. We are talking a few minutes, maybe tens of minutes, of acute distress.
Right, but and the text makes this clear. The length of the pain isn't what matters here.
It's not.
No, it's the psychological breach that occurs during those tens of minutes. Normally, when a modern person experiences a sudden severe pain, the immediate reaction is frantic action.
Oh, 100%. I'm Googling my symptoms immediately.
Exactly. We convince ourselves we have appendicitis. We're mapping the route to the nearest urgent care on our phones.
Pure panic.
It's a state of pure adrenaline-fueled panic. But the reaction described in this essay is completely different.
How so?
There is no panic. Instead, there is this profound, almost eerie, quiet realization.
Which is such a strange response to agony. I mean, why no panic?
Well, because the pain was so sudden and yet so enveloping, it bypassed that frantic problem-solving part of the brain.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it tapped directly into a deeper existential awareness. The mind didn't go to, I need to fix this right now.
What did it go to?
It went to an imaginative, deeply empathetic space. The author thought, what if this were the baseline?
The baseline. Wow.
Right. What if this wasn't a 10-minute stomach ache, but the inescapable everyday reality of a terminal illness?
That's intense.
The pain forced a radical perspective shift.
You know, that shift only happens because of how we normally function when we aren't in pain.
How do you mean?
Think about what it's like to just be healthy. When our bodies are humming along quietly in the background, we don't think about them at all.
We completely ignore them.
Exactly. Health is essentially the absence of bodily awareness. And because we aren't forced to think about our physical survival minute to minute, we take all these massive, terrifying, fundamental questions.
Like, why am I alive?
Right. Or what does it mean to die? We take those questions and we just shove them into a locked box in the basement of our minds.
Because health actually acts as a psychological barrier.
Yes.
It's a wall we build to keep deep existential reflection at bay. And there is a very sound evolutionary reason for this architecture, by the way.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, if early human beings spent all day paralyzed by the philosophical weight of their own mortality.
Right, just sitting in a cave stressing about death.
Exactly. If they were constantly acutely aware that their bodies were just temporary vessels destined to fail, they wouldn't have functioned.
They wouldn't have hunted or gathered.
They wouldn't have built complex shelters or formed societies. Our brains evolved to filter out the constant awareness of death so that we can actually operate in the present.
That makes total sense. We require the illusion of permanence just to go to work, you know?
To pay taxes.
To pay taxes, to plan for a vacation 6 months from now. Everyday health creates this necessary, comfortable numbness.
Comfortable numbness. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and I was trying to visualize that comfortable numbness, and the best way I can describe it is the check engine light on a car.
Okay, I like this. Walk me through it.
So you are driving down the highway, the sun is shining, you've got your favorite music playing, you're thinking about what you're going to make for dinner.
But completely zoned out.
Totally. You are completely taking for granted the incredibly complex thousands of pounds machine you are operating. You don't think about the pistons firing.
Or the combustible fuel exploding inches from your feet.
Exactly. You are just gliding. Then, that little orange engine light illuminates on the dashboard.
And everything changes.
Suddenly, the illusion is gone. You aren't just driving anymore. You are acutely, terrifyingly aware that you are hurling through space in a metal box composed of thousands of parts.
Any one of which could fail catastrophically at any second.
Right. So the stomachache in this scenario, the author's stomachache, is an existential check engine light.
Existential check engine light.
I love that. It forces you to pull over to the side of the road and reckon with the fact that the vehicle you are driving, your own physical body, is mortal.
It is going to break down.
It's going to break down. And what's fascinating in the text is how this sudden confrontation with mortality changes the way we view the suffering of others.
Yeah, the essay makes a very subtle but crucial distinction here.
About pity, right?
Yes. In our normal, healthy daily lives, when the check engine light is off, we might see a news story about someone with a terminal illness.
Or hear about a coworker battling cancer.
And our default reaction is pity. We think, oh, the poor thing.
Right.
But the writer notes that during those few minutes of severe pain, they were able to genuinely trace the entrance of that illness.
Trace the entrance.
It wasn't pity anymore. It evolved into something entirely different. Radical empathy.
I really want to dig into the mechanics of that difference for you listening, because why is pity our default setting when we are healthy?
It's a defense mechanism.
It is. Because on the surface, pity feels like a nice, socially acceptable emotion. We're expressing sorrow, but poor thing also feels incredibly safe.
Very safe.
It feels like there's a thick pane of bulletproof glass between me and the sick person.
Well, pity fundamentally requires distance. It requires a power dynamic.
A power dynamic, how so?
When you look at someone and say, oh, the poor thing, you are subconsciously establishing a hierarchy of safety. You are standing safe and dry on the shore, looking at someone drowning out in the ocean.
Oh, wow.
You might feel terrible for them. You might even toss them a life preserver if you have one. But your dominant underlying emotional reality is the acute awareness that you are not wet.
You are not wet. That is so brutally honest.
Right. Pity allows us to acknowledge the existence of suffering in the world without actually internalizing the terrifying, paralyzing reality that the exact same suffering could happen to us at any given moment.
So pity is how we maintain the comfortable numbness.
Exactly.
Because if we actually internalized their suffering while we were healthy, the cognitive dissonance would break us. We'd walk around in a state of perpetual terror, just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But what happens during those tens of minutes of severe, unexplained pain, like the author's stomach ache, is the total collapse of that distance.
The bulletproof glass shatters.
It shatters. You are suddenly dragged off the safe shore and thrown into the ocean. You aren't looking at the drowning person from afar anymore.
You feel the freezing water filling your own lungs.
You feel the absolute terrifying vulnerability of the flesh. The writer was able to trace the pain of others because, for a brief moment, they share the exact same physiological language.
That is so profound.
True, radical empathy often requires a shared vocabulary of pain. You cannot truly understand the terror of the body failing until your own body gives you a preview of that failure.
It's like the difference between reading a textbook about a forest fire and actually feeling the blistering heat of the flames on your face.
A perfect analogy.
And if we look at our society, it is wild how much energy we expend avoiding that heat.
Oh, immense amounts of energy.
We have constructed entire cultural and physical infrastructures to hide mortality. We build hospitals on the absolute edges of town.
We use soft euphemisms when someone dies.
They passed away. They are no longer with us.
We obsess over anti-aging regimens.
We do. We are a culture collectively terrified of the check engine light. We desperately want to believe that if we just consume enough kale
And meditate enough.
and optimize our sleep cycles, we can somehow outsmart biology.
We've managed to turn health into a moral virtue.
That's so true.
The unspoken societal implication is that if you are healthy, you are living correctly, which inversely implies that illness is somehow a moral failure.
Or at least a bizarre anomaly that happens to, quote-unquote, other people.
Right, but this sudden stomach ache strips all of that societal conditioning away in an instant. It acts as a brutal reminder that the breakdown of the body is not an anomaly.
It's the rule.
It is the eventual, inescapable rule for every single one of us.
And this sudden, undeniable realization of absolute physical vulnerability becomes the pivot point for the rest of the essay's exploration.
It does.
Because once the writer looks through this specific window of physical pain, they start dividing the landscape of human suffering into two distinct, incredibly isolated camps.
The two mirrors.
Yes, the two mirrors. So they start by looking deeply at the people whose reality they just briefly glimpsed. The first group is essentially defined by the crushing reality of, I want to live, but my body says no.
Right.
They dive into what the essay explicitly calls the unimaginable reality of those fighting terminal illnesses. People facing end-stage cancer or incurable, progressively degenerative diseases.
And the phrase unimaginable reality is doing a lot of heavy lifting here.
How so?
It's an acknowledgement of the very limit of the empathy we just discussed. Even with the existential check engine light flashing, a healthy person experiencing a brief stomachache can only glimpse the entrance to this specific type of pain.
Because we get to go back to normal.
Exactly. We simply do not possess the mental architecture to fully comprehend the sheer crushing endurance required to live inside a body that is actively, continuously failing.
We're talking about unyielding, all-day pain that doesn't pass after 10 minutes.
Never passes.
What strikes me is that when we usually talk about terminal illness in media or pop culture, we focus on the dramatic, cinematic moments.
The tearful goodbyes.
The dramatic hospital rushes. The profound final words. But this reflection doesn't do that at all.
No, it zooms way in.
It focuses squarely on the agonizing weight of the mundane. It looks at the profound Herculean struggle of just greeting the morning.
Just waking up.
Or attempting to chew and swallow a few bites of a meal. Or trying to muster enough focus through a haze of pain medication just to look at a family member's face and register who they are.
This is where we have to deeply analyze the concept of willpower in the text.
Okay, let's do that.
And the profound friction between the mind and the body. Consider the mechanics of what it takes for a healthy person to wake up and eat breakfast.
It's nothing.
It requires absolutely zero conscious willpower. It is an autonomic, frictionless process. You feel a hunger cue, you walk to the kitchen, you pour cereal, you lift the spoon, you eat. Your physical vessel seamlessly facilitates your mental desires. There is no resistance. But for the terminally ill person, that exact same sequence of microevents is a monumental, exhausting military campaign.
Taking that further, think about the sheer calorie burn of just willing your body to perform a basic function when the body is in active rebellion.
It's staggering.
It's like trying to run a marathon through waist-deep mud while breathing through a cocktail straw. Every single neurological command to move a muscle is met with profound physical resistance and pain.
The healthy mind simply cannot calculate the volume of stamina required for that existence.
No.
And the deepest tragedy here, the core of this specific suffering, is the ultimate betrayal.
The betrayal of the body.
It is the betrayal of the physical form against the human spirit. You have a mind that is vibrant, a mind that desperately wants to see the sun shine today,
A mind that wants to taste food.
a mind that wants to smile at a child.
Okay.
But the body, the only vehicle that mind has to interact with the world, is a heavy, broken, decaying machine that flatly refuses to execute those commands.
It's a burden so heavy it almost defies language.
It does.
The friction between a burning desire to live and a physical trap, it's agonizing to even think about. And the way these mundane tasks are framed in the essay, it changes the entire context of existing.
It completely recontextualizes it.
When a person in that state manages to eat a single piece of toast or manages to prop themselves up just to look their partner in the eyes, it's not just sustenance or a casual glance.
No, it's so much more.
It completely transforms from a basic human function into an act of supreme, almost violent defiance against the decay.
Defiance against the decay. Let's explore the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
Because the body is loudly demanding to shut down. The pain is acting like a black hole, demanding 100% of the brain's processing power and attention.
Just screaming at you.
Screaming. But by forcing themselves to look away from the pain, to greet the morning, they are staging a rebellion.
A rebellion against their own biology.
Yes. They are saying, my physical architecture is collapsing, the alarms are deafening, but I'm going to channel whatever microscopic, finite amount of energy I have left into connecting with the world outside of this pain.
Wow.
It frames eating a meal not as a dietary necessity, but as a monumental, exhausting act of love.
That's incredibly beautiful.
It takes the most ordinary things in the world and reveals them as epic, unseen battles of the human spirit.
But it's also the ultimate imprisonment. You are held hostage inside your own skin, fully aware of what you want to do, and completely powerless to do it.
Absolute powerlessness.
You read through this analysis of the failing body, and it's so heavy, you naturally think, okay, this has to be the pinnacle of human suffering.
Right, you think it can't get worse.
It fundamentally cannot get worse than desperately wanting to live but being killed by your own vessel.
But
then, the reflection does something completely unexpected. It doesn't linger on this group alone. It immediately pivots.
a very sharp pivot.
It takes this unimaginable reality of the failing body, and it holds up a mirror to introduce a second group of people who are betrayed by something entirely different.
It moves from, I want to live, but my body says no, to the complete inverse reality.
Which is,
I want to die, but my body's perfectly healthy. The focus shifts to people whose physical vessels are functioning flawlessly, their hearts beat perfectly, their lungs process oxygen efficiently, their muscles are strong.
physically, they're fine.
Perfectly fine. But whose minds and hearts are at their absolute limit. They are experiencing a profound, relentless psychological decay.
They are dying on the inside.
They are, in a very literal experiential sense, dying internally.
I really struggle with how to even conceptualize that level of mental dread. The sheer weight of just waking up.
It's the mirror image of the first group.
Right. For the first group, the terminally ill, waking up is a physical battlefield. For this second group, waking up is a psychological nightmare.
They open their eyes. There is zero physical pain in their body. But their very first conscious thought is, I have to live through this day again.
I have to live through this day again. The sheer suffocating dread of existing for another 12 to 16 hours.
And a crucial element of this specific suffering, as outlined in the source, is how incredibly profoundly isolating it is.
Because it's invisible.
Exactly. It is an isolation born of invisibility.
Yeah.
If you have terminal cancer, there are usually outward, undeniable signs.
Medical devices, hospital beds.
Physical wasting. Society has a script for how to react to you. We recognize the illness.
Right.
But if you are trapped in this second reality, if you are battling severe treatment-resistant depression or profound mental anguish, your body is a perfect disguise.
Perfect disguise. That's chilling.
You can walk, you can talk, you can show up to your office job, you can smile at the barista. To the outside world, You appear as a perfectly functional unit of society.
But internally.
Internally, the experience is described as being trapped in an endless pitch-black darkness with absolutely no exit.
But I want to play devil's advocate here, or at least voice the societal resistance to this idea.
Sure, go for it.
Because we live in a world that heavily, almost exclusively, prioritizes what it can measure and see.
Very true.
If someone is physically sick, the community rallies. We organize meal trans. We give them extended medical leave. We completely understand if they drop all their responsibilities.
We give them grace.
We give them grace. But if someone is physically healthy, society's patience is incredibly thin. The expectation is that you just, push through it.
Right. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
We tell people, cheer up, or go for a jog, you just need endorphins. Or, the worst one, you have a good job and a healthy body, you have so much to be grateful for.
The guilt trip.
The guilt trip. So my question to you is, how does the author validate this invisible mental pain without somehow insulting or diminishing the incredibly visceral, measurable pain of the terminally ill person fighting for a single breath?
That is the exact tension, the friction that makes this exploration so vital. Society's reaction, go for a jog, be grateful, stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of the physiology of severe mental suffering.
We think of them as separate.
We assume the mind and the body are separate. But the brain is an organ. When someone is in that pitch-black darkness, their brain chemistry is actively creating a reality of pure agony.
It's an organ failure of a different kind.
Exactly. The exhaustion of fighting your own mind all day is physically depleting. The dread isn't just a mood. It is a neurological state of emergency.
Taking that further, if the darkness is so pitch black and the pain is so unbearable that they actively want to escape existence, why do they stay?
That's the million-dollar question.
What are the mechanics keeping them tethered to a life they desperately want to leave? Because the answer isn't usually a direct, simple fear of the biological act of dying, is it?
No, the tethers are much more complex and often incredibly cruel.
Cruel how?
People stay alive in this state of mental agony frequently due to the sheer crushing weight of empathy for others. It's guilt. It's the agonizing thought of the destruction their exit would leave on the people behind them, their parents, their children, their friends.
So they're essentially absorbing immense daily torture to spare others from grief.
Precisely. Or, as the author beautifully notes, there might be a faint, lingering, almost microscopic biological spark of self-preservation deep in their DNA.
Just a tiny ember?
An ember that simply refuses to extinguish, even when the conscious mind is screaming for an end to the pain.
They are held hostage by their own empathy.
Hostage is the right word.
I keep trying to visualize this state, and the image that comes to mind is being trapped in a small room.
Okay, picture the room.
The door to the room is technically unlocked. You can see the handle, it turns. But there is an invisible, paralyzing, million-pound gravity pressing down on your chest,
Ping you down.
preventing you from even lifting your arm to reach the door. You know the exit is right there. You desperately want to walk through it, but you are physically and mentally pinned to the floor by forces no one else in the world can see.
That invisible gravity is the perfect representation of the inability to die that the text discusses.
It's terrifying.
It is a state of suspended animation in a localized hell. The mind desperately wants to end the suffering, but these complex, invisible tethers, guilt, obligation, biological stubbornness keep them locked in a painful, enduring existence.
And what about my earlier question?
About validating it without insulting the physically ill.
Right.
Here's the key. We don't validate the mental pain by arguing it's worse or better than the physical pain.
We don't rank it.
We validate it by recognizing the deeply tragic symmetry between the two.
The two mirrors.
The two mirrors. We have these two groups. Those who want to live but can't because their physical bodies are destroying them.
Group one.
And those who want to die but can't because their minds are destroying them, yet their bodies stubbornly keep them alive.
Group two.
They exist in the world like two massive mirrors facing each other,
Yeah.
but they're completely unaware of one another.
They are standing back to back in the exact same room of suffering.
It's a staggering, haunting image.
It really is. And it leads to a thought experiment that feels almost taboo to even voice out loud.
Which is?
The idea that both of these groups might desperately, fervently wish they could swap places.
Oh, yes. Let's explore the psychology of that hypothetical swap, because it gets to the absolute core of human agony.
Okay, set the scene.
Imagine the terminally ill person lying in a hospital bed, barely able to breathe. They look out the window and see the physically healthy person who is severely depressed walking down the street.
What are they thinking?
The terminal patient might think, if I just had your body, if I just had your perfectly functioning lungs, your strong heart, your cellular health, I would conquer the entire world.
I wouldn't waste it.
Right. I would devour every single second of life. I would be so overwhelmingly grateful just to walk to the grocery store without pain.
And conversely,
The severely depressed person looks at the terminal patient in the hospital and thinks, if I had your terminal diagnosis, I would finally be free. I would finally have permission from society to let go. I wouldn't have to carry this crushing invisible guilt anymore.
because society would finally see the pain.
Exactly. The world would finally see my pain. They would understand why I can't function. And I would have a guaranteed endpoint to this endless darkness.
It is the ultimate, darkest manifestation of the grass is always greener, played out in the most existential terms possible.
Both sides look at the other's assignment and see an escape route.
But the cruel reality, the absolute bedrock tragedy of the human condition is that this swap is fundamentally impossible.
Impossible.
You cannot trade your suffering. You cannot negotiate your way out of the specific biology you inhabit.
And here's the real kicker. Even if you could somehow magically execute that swap, it wouldn't solve a single thing.
It wouldn't.
It's an illusion. Think about it. If they swapped, the terminally ill person gets the healthy body, but they inherit the crushing, paralyzing mental darkness of the depressed brain.
Oh, I see.
They wouldn't conquer the world. They would be instantly crushed by the invisible gravity we just talked about. Their newfound health would become a prison.
And the depressed person.
The depressed person gets the terminal body, but they inherit the desperate, burning, vibrant will to live.
Only to realize their new body is suffocating them.
In sheer horror, the suffering doesn't disappear, it just changes its shape.
Which is precisely why the essay has an explicit, emphatic warning against ever ranking these sufferings.
Yes, this is perhaps the most vital ethical point of the entire reflection. Neither pain is superior. Neither is worse.
And I really want to emphasize this for you listening, because we live in a culture that is absolutely addicted to playing the trauma Olympics.
No, we love the trauma Olympics.
We love it. We love to categorize and rank who has it worst, as if human suffering is a zero-sum game with a gold medal of validity waiting at the end.
It's so toxic.
We constantly invalidate ourselves and others. We think, well, I shouldn't be severely depressed about my life because someone across town has stage 4 cancer.
Or, my grief over losing a job isn't as valid as their grief over losing a parent.
We try to apply logic to agony, but giving these pains a ranking or a hierarchy is completely, utterly meaningless.
Meaningless.
Both pains are absolutely 100% authentic to the nervous system experiencing them.
A drowning man in 10 feet of water is just as dead as a drowning man in 100 feet of water.
Exactly. The depth of the ocean doesn't change the reality of the water in his lungs.
The underlying mechanism that connects both groups, the thing that makes them perfectly symmetrical mirrors, is the experience of absolute powerlessness.
Absolute powerlessness.
Both are trapped in conditions they cannot control, cannot negotiate with, and cannot cure. They are forced to live in the specific bodies and the specific minds they were given.
With absolutely no ability to alter the fundamental parameters of their existence.
The terminally ill person cannot use pure logic to command their cells to stop mutating. And the mentally suffering person cannot use pure logic to command their brain chemistry to produce serotonin and joy. They are both hostages to their biology.
So if they can't swap and they can't fix it, and they are both existing in a state of absolute powerlessness, what is the point of bringing them face to face conceptually?
What do you mean?
What actually happens if these two mirrors are forced to look at each other? If neither pain is worse, what is the value of recognizing the other?
The author suggests that if the person who wishes to die were to witness, truly and deeply witness, the reality of the person fighting to live, they might feel a profound sense of what is called apology.
Apology.
Yes. And through this complex emotion, the contours of their own suffering might slightly shift.
Shift the contours of their suffering. That's a very delicate, specific phrase.
It is.
I want to unpack the mechanics of that, because on the surface, it sounds like it could easily slip right back into that toxic positivity we just rejected.
Like a guilt trip.
Right, like, see how bad the cancer patient has it. You should feel guilty for being sad, so stop being depressed, which we just firmly established is exactly what we shouldn't do.
Exactly.
So how does witnessing another's pain shift the contour without invalidating your own?
It requires a very nuanced understanding of shared human tragedy. The idea is absolutely not that seeing a sick person magically cures mental anguish through a forced injection of guilt or gratitude.
That would be a gross misinterpretation.
Total misinterpretation. Gaining awareness of the mirrored suffering doesn't erase a single ounce of your pain. It simply reframes your relationship to the isolation of that pain.
Help me visualize that reframing. If the pain doesn't get lighter, what changes?
Think of your suffering as a massive, incredibly heavy boulder you have been forced to carry.
Okay, a huge boulder.
When you are alone in your pitch-black room of mental anguish, that boulder is your entire universe. It feels uniquely yours, it feels targeted, and it feels like a specific punishment from the cosmos.
Why me?
Exactly. But if the lights suddenly turn on, and you look across the room and see someone else, the terminal patient carrying a completely different boulder. Maybe their boulder's physically jagged, where yours is smooth and dense. Your boulder doesn't get a single pound lighter. You still have to carry it. The crushing weight is identical.
But the shape of reality changes.
You realize you are not the sole target of a cruel universe. The apology mentioned isn't necessarily a toxic guilt for having healthy lungs.
Then what is it?
It's a profound, sorrowful recognition of the shared, unavoidable human burden.
Wow.
The contour of your suffering shifts from, why is the universe punishing me specifically, to, this is the tragic, chaotic nature of the human condition, and none of us are spared.
It moves from pure targeted isolation to a very dark, quiet kind of solidarity.
Exactly, a dark solidarity.
That is incredibly heavy, but I can see how it's strangely comforting. It's the sudden realization that the torture chamber you are trapped in isn't empty.
You aren't alone.
There's someone else in there with you. Even if you are shackled to opposite walls, you are participating in a shared phenomenon.
Right.
But it also highlights this incredibly cruel fairness.
The unfair.
The cruel fairness that no one gets to pick their boulder. We are all just handed these agonizing assignments at birth, or randomly assign them halfway through our lives and told, here, carry this until you die.
And that realization that we are all just carrying unchosen burdens in a state of absolute powerlessness naturally forces us to confront the next massive, unavoidable question.
Which is?
If we are completely trapped in these unchangeable circumstances, if we are burdened by a failing body or an exhausted, tortured mind, how on earth are we supposed to live?
Right. What does a good or successful life even look like under those oppressive parameters?
Which brings us to what I think is the most transformative part of this entire exploration.
Redefining dignity.
Yes. The way it takes this question of how to live and uses it to radically, beautifully redefine a very heavy, historically loaded word. Dignity.
We really need to deconstruct how society traditionally views dignity, because the historical definition is incredibly oppressive.
It's exhausting.
It is. We generally associate dignity with something lofty, noble, and triumphant. We think of dignity as living a quote-unquote correct life.
Achieving great, measurable things.
Or living beautifully and selflessly for the benefit of others. We think of it as maintaining perfect stoic composure in the face of adversity, the stiff upper lip.
Right, it's the cinematic Hollywood version of dignity.
Totally. It's the king stepping up to the executioner's block without shedding a single tear.
Or, in modern terms, it's the person who fights a devastating illness while simultaneously writing an inspiring best-selling book.
Running a marathon.
And starting a charity.
Yes. Society implicitly tells us that dignity is synonymous with overcoming your circumstances.
It's about triumph.
It's about triumph, or at the very least, maintaining a flawless, unbothered facade while you suffer.
But this text looks at that definition and calls it out for what it is.
An impossible, toxic burden.
It strips dignity down to something incredibly simple, raw, and almost shockingly bare.
How does it define it?
It posits that dignity is merely treating your given body and mind as your own until the very end.
That's it?
That is the entire definition. It has absolutely nothing to do with triumph. It has nothing to do with nobility or being an inspiration to others or leaving a legacy.
It argues that whether you are fighting a horrific terminal illness or you are just barely by the skin of your teeth surviving a single Tuesday of severe mental exhaustion.
Just managing to get through today.
Just managing to get through today means you have fully 100% maintained your dignity. You don't need to start a charity. You don't need to be brave.
You just need to exist until the sun goes down and the day resets.
The psychological liberation in this concept is staggering.
It's massive.
Modern society puts immense, crushing pressure pressure on people to constantly have a purpose, to find their passion, to ensure they leave a meaningful legacy.
We are constantly bombarded with the message that we must optimize our lives,
Overcome our struggles.
turn our pain into an inspiring TED Talk.
God, the TED Talk pressure.
Before.
But this redefinition removes all of that manufactured burden. Just enduring the sheer friction of the pain, whether it is biological or psychological, and seeing the day end is framed as an act of quiet, undeniable beauty.
I know you were trying to find an analogy for how this changes the goalposts of life.
Oh yeah, the marathon analogy. I kept thinking about the concept of running a marathon.
Walk us through it.
Let's say you enter a marathon. Society's definition of dignity dictates that you must cross the finish line with your hands raised in the air,
Smiling for the cameras.
maybe setting a personal best time and inspiring onlookers. Society dictates that if you don't do that, you have failed, you lacked dignity.
Right.
But this new definition from the author says something radically different. It says that if you make it to mile 18 and your muscles completely catastrophically give out,
And you collapse.
and you collapse on the side of the road in the dirt, if you are crying, covered in sweat, and physically incapable of taking another step.
If you just sit there on the curb.
Yes, if you sit on the curb and you simply refuse to take off your running shoes, that is dignity.
Wow.
You didn't finish the race. You didn't look pretty doing it. You aren't inspiring anyone. But you stayed in the reality you were given.
You didn't abandon your post.
Exactly. Just enduring the reality you are trapped in, even if that reality is sitting broken on a curb, is a complete and total manifestation of human dignity.
That analogy perfectly encapsulates the mechanics of this philosophy. By this stripped-down definition, both the physically ill person and the mentally exhausted person share the exact same level of profound, unassailable dignity.
Because they are both just enduring.
They're both actively navigating the raw, chaotic, unchosen materials they were handed by the universe.
The terminally ill person who simply manages to inhale and exhale through another 24 hours of agony.
And the severely depressed person who simply manages to stare blankly at the ceiling for 12 hours without ending their life.
They are both engaged in the exact same pursuit.
They are both practicing what we could call the quiet aesthetics of survival.
The quiet aesthetics of survival. That is such a powerful phrase. And I really want to speak directly to you, the listener, if you are currently in the middle of a really dark, overwhelming time.
Because the relief here is palpable.
The psychological relief this perspective provides is massive. We expend so much of our finite energy actively beating ourselves up for not thriving.
Torturing ourselves with shoulds.
I should be doing more with my life. I shouldn't be this tired all the time. I should be happier given my circumstances.
This philosophy gives you absolute permission to drop every single one of those shoulds.
It dictates that if your entire day consisted of nothing more than waking up, surviving the baseline pain of your existence, and going back to sleep, you have achieved an aesthetic victory.
You require zero outside validation.
You don't have to be glorious. You don't have to be bright. You just have to own your life for today.
It fundamentally shifts the goalposts of a successful human life from achievement to endurance.
Endurance over achievement.
It explicitly rejects the idea that there is a correct way of living or that you must live for others to have value.
Yeah.
Just getting through the day is enough to say you are perfectly fulfilling your cosmic assignment.
Okay, so let's synthesize where we are. We have these two mirrored groups of profound suffering.
Right.
We have the realization of our absolute powerlessness over the boulders we are handed, and we have this incredibly comforting, stripped-down definition of dignity as mere endurance.
Yeah.
But here is the ultimate human friction. If we just accept things as they are, if we just sit on the curb and endure the pain, do we ever get an answer to why the suffering exists in the first place?
The search for meaning.
Right. Do we ever figure out the meaning behind the chaos? Because enduring is great, but human neurobiology is wired to seek patterns. We desperately want to know why we are enduring.
This is where we arrive at the final and perhaps most brutally stoic conclusion of the entire exploration.
Which is?
The argument is that between these two types of suffering, the physical decay and the mental anguish, there are absolutely no clear answers. None. There is no grand, unifying mathematical theory that perfectly explains why one person gets aggressive bone cancer at age 30, another gets treatment-resistant depression that ruins their life, while a third person lives to be 100 years old with zero major problems.
It's just chaos.
The universe operates on chaos, And it fundamentally does not owe us an explanation for that chaos.
And trying to force an explanation, trying to impose logic onto chaos, usually causes immense harm, right?
Exactly. Attempting to force a neat conclusion or a philosophical bow onto these situations almost inevitably results in taking someone's profound pain lightly.
It's a defense mechanism for the observer.
Yes, if you try to explain away someone's terminal illness by looking at them and saying, everything happens for a reason, God has a plan.
Ugh, people say that all the time.
Or if you try to explain away someone's severe depression by saying, it's just a temporary chemical imbalance, you just need a better mindset.
You are actively minimizing their reality.
You are actively minimizing the profound, chaotic, terrifying reality of their suffering. You are desperately trying to shrink their massive, jagged boulder into a tiny, manageable box.
And not to help them, but so that you feel more comfortable with the randomness of the universe.
Precisely.
We demand answers because the lack of answers is terrifying.
It is terrifying.
If there is a clear, logical reason for suffering, like karma or poor diet or a bad mindset, then maybe we can avoid it. We can protect ourselves.
We feel safe.
But if it's just pure, unadulterated randomness, it means we are all completely vulnerable at all times. The check engine light could come on tomorrow.
For anyone.
So if we aren't supposed to look for conclusions, what is the alternative? How do we handle the terror of the unknown?
The alternative presented by the author is incredibly challenging. Holding on to unanswerable questions without demanding an answer is a fundamental, mature part of the human experience.
Sitting in the discomfort.
Sitting in the raw discomfort of an unsolved, unfair reality is presented as an act of the deepest possible empathy.
That takes so much discipline.
We have to train ourselves to look at the mirrored suffering of the world, to look at the cancer patient and the depressed friend and say, I do not know why this is happening to you.
I do not know how to fix it.
It is completely unfair, and I will not insult your dignity by pretending I have a solution.
That is the complete polar opposite of modern cultural conditioning.
Totally opposed to it.
We live in a society of optimization. We want a pill, a podcast, a life hack, a 5-step morning routine to fix every single human ailment immediately.
We want a quick fix.
The idea of just standing in the smoking wreckage of a life and saying, this is broken, it hurts, and I don't know why, is a deeply radical stance.
It is radical, but it leads to the ultimate perspective on the concept of fairness.
Fairness.
Yeah.
How is any of this fair?
Well, because if there are no answers, and it's all random, we have to look at the system itself. The ultimate equalizer in all of this, the only guarantee, is death.
Death comes for us all.
It comes for everyone equally, with zero regard for their physical health, their mental state, their wealth, or their moral standing.
Right.
And before that inevitable death arrives, the fundamental rule of the game is that we cannot choose our bodies, we cannot choose our brain chemistry, and we cannot choose our starting environments.
We are just thrown into the world.
Thrown into the world with a completely random set of biological parameters.
Which, on an individual level, feels intensely, aggressively unfair.
It feels like a bad deal.
It does. Why do some people get handed a healthy, resilient body and a brain that naturally produces joy, while others are handed a body riddled with chronic pain and a brain that constantly produces dread?
It's a blind lottery.
It is a blind lottery, but here's the brilliant paradoxical twist. While this complete lack of choice seems incredibly unfair on an individual microscopic level,
It is actually the most perfectly fair system possible on a macrocosmic level.
I need you to break that down. How is a random, chaotic lottery fair?
Think about the alternative. Because of the absolute purity of its randomness, the system cannot be gamed.
Oh, I see.
If we could choose our starting conditions, or if health and happiness were distributed based on merit, the universe would instantly be corrupted by preference,
By power dynamic.
by pre-existing advantage. The rich would buy better biology. The powerful would negotiate better brain chemistry.
They absolutely would.
But because absolutely no one gets to choose, because the billionaire CEO and the person sleeping on the street are both subjected to the exact same unpredictable, chaotic biological lottery, the system itself is purely, brutally impartial.
Unfair fairness.
It is what we could call an unfair fairness. The rules of the game are chaotic and terrifying, but they apply to every single player without a single exception. Biology cannot be bribed.
Okay, I see the mechanics of that. It's terrifying, but it is deeply, fundamentally democratic.
Completely democratic.
The existential check engine light can turn on for anyone at any time, regardless of their status. So if the system is a random, chaotic fairness, and we can't find clear answers to why we suffer, and our dignity is simply found in enduring our specific assignment, how do we synthesize all of this into a way of moving forward?
The conclusion is that fulfilling the specific life you were given without constantly demanding different conditions is the ultimate aesthetic achievement.
It all comes back to ownership.
It all comes back to ownership. You did not choose your body. You did not choose your mind. You certainly did not choose your suffering or the specific boulder you have to carry.
But you are here.
But you are here. The chaotic lottery placed you on the board, and the most beautiful, dignified thing a human being can do is take absolute ownership of that specific random assignment and see it through to the bitter end.
It's incredible to pull back and look at the massive architectural scope of the journey we just went on.
It's a huge arc.
It all started with a mundane 10-minute stomach ache, just a random flash of pain in the middle of the night.
A tiny trigger.
And from that tiny microscopic seed of physical discomfort, this massive philosophical realization bloomed. The realization that life isn't about striving for some perfect, optimized, pain-free existence.
Not at all.
It's about looking at the exact, highly specific assignment you are given by the cosmic lottery, whether that's a body that is actively failing you or a mind that is relentlessly exhausting you and saying, okay, this is my boulder.
This is mine.
This is mine. I will carry it until the sun goes down today. It's taking ownership of your existence until the very end.
And by doing so, by simply enduring the friction of your own reality, you are participating in the exact same profound dignity as everyone else on the planet.
We're all in it together.
You are an active participant in the shared, tragic, beautiful human endeavor of survival.
This has been one of the most intense and profound deep dives we have ever taken. The sheer scale of moving from a physical twinge to the mechanics of the universe is staggering.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started with the concept of the existential check engine light. How a brief moment of physical vulnerability can completely shatter our evolutionary illusions of permanence and safety.
We dove deep into the mechanics of pity versus radical empathy.
We explored the mirrored, isolated worlds of suffering, the unimaginable, exhausting reality of wanting to live while trapped in a decaying body, and the crushing, invisible gravity of wanting to die while trapped in a healthy body.
We unpacked why these sufferings are incomparable,
Why the trauma Olympics are a toxic fiction.
and how these pains exist as cruel reflections of each other.
We also thoroughly deconstructed society's oppressive definition of dignity, stripping it of its demand for triumph and toxic positivity.
We reframed dignity simply as the quiet, relentless aesthetic of surviving the specific day you were given.
And finally, we looked at the paradoxical comfort of abandoning the search for why, and instead accepting the unanswerable, chaotic, deeply democratic fairness of human mortality.
It is a massive amount of psychological weight to process.
It really is. But I want to remind you, the person listening to this right now, of the most critical, actionable takeaway from this entire exploration.
The most important point.
Whatever boulder you are currently carrying, whether it is highly visible to the world or whether it is completely hidden in the pitch-black darkness of your own mind, your suffering is real.
The friction you feel is valid.
You do not ever need to rank it against anyone else's pain to justify your exhaustion.
No trauma Olympics.
And if you are listening to this right now, if you are simply drawing breath, it means you have successfully survived today.
You did it.
And by this new liberated definition, that means you are succeeding at maintaining your absolute dignity. You are doing enough.
The act of enduring without demanding a different reality is the highest possible human achievement. You are fulfilling your assignment beautifully simply by being here to hear these words.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go back to your day. We've spent a lot of time talking about mirrors and shifting contours.
We have.
So the next time you experience your own check engine light, maybe it's a sudden physical pain like the one that sparked this whole essay, or maybe it's just a wave of deep, unexplainable mental exhaustion that hits you out of nowhere on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Whenever it happens.
Instead of just rushing to fix it or numb it or push past it so you can get back to being productive, just pause.
Take a breath.
Sit in the discomfort for 1 minute and ask yourself, How does this temporary flash of pain shift the contours of how I view the people I interact with every day?
That's a great question.
Who in my immediate life might be silently carrying a massive boulder I cannot see, fighting with every ounce of their willpower against an invisible gravity just to make it to tomorrow morning?
Let it be a bridge.
Let that tiny, fleeting moment of your own pain be the bridge that connects you to the massive hidden web of human endurance.
It is a profound lens through which to view the world, and a question absolutely worth carrying with you.
Thank you so much for taking this journey with us. We'll see you next time.